what's up? It's Jake. There's a big difference, I think, between being loyal to a brand and being like a fanboy of a brand. The big difference being that loyalty is sort of a two-way street. Being loyal to a brand means that that brand has done something for you to earn you feeling like you owe them your loyalty. And I'm on board with the idea that some brands do that with their customers. The best example I can think of a company who builds brand loyalty is Kia, the car manufacturer. When you go to repurchase a vehicle or you go to trade in your car, the Kia dealer will give you more on your trade-in than you can get almost anywhere else for upgrading to another Kia. They have fantastic programs for trade-ins, and when it comes to trading a Kia on another Kia, there is no better deal to be had. You can trade in a Ford on a Ford, it's not the same. Trade in a Toyota on a Toyota, it's not the same. But you go to a Kia dealer and you trade in a Kia on another Kia, you will definitely get the maximum value for your trade, and you'll probably even get a good deal on the car that you're buying. That's something that a brand can do to build actual loyalty. People buy those cars and they get to the point where they feel like, that's who I want to stick with. I have a reason to stick with this brand. So for Kia owners, their reason is that they're going to get value for their trade, and they'll get a good deal on a new car, and they can continue that procedure, time and again as they own vehicles or buy extra vehicles for their family members or whatever. It's a no-brainer if you're a Kia owner to continue to buy Kias. I think there are a lot of people, though, who have brand loyalty that hasn't been earned. Some people are loyal to a brand because they are perceived to be the best brand. And there are people who are loyal to a brand that has maybe done things that really were contrary to a person's interests, but they still are loyal. I would say that those people fall into the category of a fanboy. Somebody who supports a brand no matter what they do, no matter which missteps they take. Everything they make is the best. Everything they make is perfect. It's awesome. They don't make mistakes. Every model is awesome. I love the way they look. I love the way they work. I love everything about it. That is fanboy culture for me. That anybody who's just fiercely supportive and loyal to a certain brand of anything without real reason to be. And then there's people who are just interested in one brand because they're comfortable with it. It's what they know. It's what they've always known. Maybe it's what their grandpa had or their dad had or whatever it is. Whether it's a car or a bicycle or whatever, motorcycle, guitar, anything. On the TalkBase forum recently, people were asking, are you a fanboy of any particular brands? And it just made me start to think about this topic, because there are a ton of people, especially on TalkBase, that are just only into like Fenders, or they only play Ibanez, or they only use Warwick, or whatever it is. And there's all kinds of reasons why people have those thoughts. For me, as a bass player, I've owned I think slightly over 50 basses in the 20 years that I've been playing, and of those, 25 of them have been Warwicks, German Warwicks. I've never owned anything that wasn't made in Germany, and that's not because I'm a snob about it or anything. It's just that I got into Warwicks way before they made basses anywhere else, and I've only ever bought used Warwicks. So the ones that I've come across that have been used have been older ones, from the 90s and stuff like that, early 2000s. And those are the basses that I'm the most familiar with. They're the basses that I prefer to play because they feel comfortable for me. And I've had so many of them and I've played them for so many years now that I just don't think that there's any other bass that I will ever feel that way about. And obviously I've tried a ton. I've tried a bunch of basses. I mean, I'm sure there are other bass players who have been playing for 20 years that have had more basses than I have, but there are surely a lot of bass players that have been playing for 20 years that haven't owned a fraction of what I've owned because I'm constantly trying new things. I've owned Fenders, I've owned Ibanez, I've had I've had Japanese Fenders, I've had Mexican Fenders, I've had a Dean bass, I've had a Spectre, a USA Spectre. I've had basses that I had a bass custom made for me, a custom fretless. I'm trying to think of what other brands. I've owned a ton of different basses, PVs and stuff like that. And I have pros and cons for every bass I've ever owned, including the Warwicks. And some of those have like some pretty glaring cons, and there's a reason why I don't own a lot of them still. And it just is what it is, And some brands like Warwick has sort of had to try to come up with new innovations or different ways of making things. So they've used different kinds of woods and different kinds of materials for the nut. They've definitely come out with some really different body styles. When I first got into Warwicks, usually you would see one of 3 or 4 body styles with a couple of different wood variations and pickup configurations and stuff like that. But not a ton of different weird stuff. And then as time went on, they ended up with some different models that were sort of off the wall, because I feel like they're just trying things out. They're not afraid to try new things. And I can admire that. And if you look at all the different companies in the bass world, it seems like Warwick, more than anyone else, is genuinely interested in the bass community. Not just in the Warwick community, but the bass community. Every year, Warwick puts on a bass camp. It's in Germany. I'm not sure how much it costs to go. I'm sure it isn't cheap, but the point is, Warwick puts it on. They could very easily only have Warwick instructors, only people who are famous for playing Warwicks and stuff like that. But they know that they would have better results with a higher caliber player if they opened up their teaching positions for the camp to bassists of all types, all brands, all styles, all that stuff. So you end up with people who've never even had Warwicks. They've never even, been associated with the company in any sort of endorsement way or anything like that. You end up with people who are famous for playing Fenders, or famous for, Victor Wooten is famous for playing Fodera basses, and I've never seen a Warwick in his hands, but he gets invited to be a part of this bass camp because it's not about just their brand. It's not about just making people, drink the Kool-Aid. It's about trying to foster a better appreciation of the instrument of bass guitar, and they do an awesome job of that, and they really seem to care about doing things the right way. They were the first manufacturer in the musical instrument industry who ran a carbon neutral facility. That means that they were not putting any additional pollutants into the environment. They were carbon neutral, and sometimes I think they've even been carbon negative, which is just awesome. They're based in Germany. They use a lot of solar fuel and things like that for their facilities, and that's just awesome. And they took it upon themselves to try to blaze that trail. They weren't forced to do it. They weren't slapped with, you know, new regulations from some governmental body that said you have to do this. They did it on their own, and that's awesome. I think that they're a fantastic company, and I love their bases. I've owned a ton of them. I'm happy with the sound of them and all that stuff, but I think you couldn't really call me a brand loyalist because I have never given a penny of my money to Warwick. I've always bought used. I've bought on the used market. I've bought from stores used. I've bought from individuals. And so even though, you know, I feel like I feel like I am a Warwick guy through and through and through, you know, Warwick hasn't actually had a transaction with me. And so, you know, they don't owe me a thing. I actually have an endorsement deal with Warwick because I play their bases, and because of that deal I'm able to get certain perks or certain discounts through, you know, their custom shop and stuff like that. But with that said, you know, they don't owe me that. They extended that as a courtesy to me, and you know, I very much appreciate it. But like I said, I have never given any money to Warwick, and so I can't. I would feel wrong saying that I'm brand loyal to Warwick. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just a fanboy. But with that being said, like I said originally, there are definitely models that Warwick has put out that I have not been a fan of, like the Katana and the Vampire and the Buzzard and stuff like that. It's an interesting topic to talk about brand loyalty and being a fanboy and whatnot. What do you think about it? Are you a fanboy of anybody? Are you a loyalist of anything? Do you think it's possible to be a loyalist without being a customer? You know, that's a thing that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that collect, you know, vintage cars, like vintage Cadillacs or vintage motorcycles of some sort, and they may not have ever bought anything from those companies, but would you say that they're not brand loyalists? I don't know. It's an interesting thing, so let me know what you think, and I'll get you next time.